Hey guys, this is Nique and Ress, and this is Shoe of Alchemy. Today we're talking about boundaries.
So let's start off with what we even mean by the word boundaries. When we say boundaries, we're talking about having a limit, having a clear-cut line of where you will and will not bend or break for your own personal well-being, or maybe even sometimes for the well-being of others. It's like a set of rules that keep you safe, whether that's physically safe or emotionally safe. So today we'll be talking about boundaries and not allowing those you love and even those you don't to walk all over you out of fear of making things uncomfortable. Now, sometimes we have people in our lives who unconsciously or straight up consciously disregards our wants, our needs, and we kind of just allow it. It's not that we want our needs disrespected. A lot of the times we just kind of form these type of relationships with these people where our role is kind of to just like keep the peace, which often means that we have to disregard our needs or our wants to make that happen. Sometimes this can be our role with family members, but this can also happen with friends and romantic partners. And sometimes this can even go as far as happening with coworkers or straight up strangers. So, Nique, is this something that you feel like you struggle with?
Yes. I feel like I always struggle with this even from being a child. It probably just stems from, like we say, everything childhood or parent or just things put on me that I had no choice to make the decision about. So just like, I don't know how to make those boundaries sometimes. I'm getting way better at it now. Way better. But I still have my times. But this happens to me at work. Family and friends is probably the most. And romantic partners can sometimes get in there too, but sometimes I get over that and I just go out. I don't know, like lately, romantic partners can get over more, but I remember before, not so much at all. Like, no, you're disrespecting. No, that's a no. It was so easy for me to have boundaries with guys, but now not so much. I don't really understand that part. But overall, this is something that I'm getting better at, but it is something that I've always been a struggle for me. What about you?
Well, but wait, let me address something because you're like, well, guys, this did not used to be a thing and lately it is. Do you feel like maybe it's a thing though? Not so much because you're like, I care more, but it's because you're more nonchalant. And so things roll over more because it's like, I don't care as much that by the time I realize things are happening, I'm like, oh, hold on. Just because you've been kind of on like, whatever mode that like, you're not paying a close enough attention.
That might be it.
Yeah, because you've been on chill mode. Like, you've been on real heavy chill mode. I'm like, it's whatever.
But this thing is not just with God, like with everything lately. And I don't even know how to put my hand on it, like where just like shifts coming from. But I definitely been on chill mode with everything. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's a thing. Let me say something about that. But it takes me so long to get there. So maybe you're right in that. Because, back when we were younger, like in college days, even though, I was in some crazy situations, but I still always spoke my mind in those situations. Like, I would do for a little bit, but we're going to argue, we're going to talk, we're going to like, no, you're disrespecting, or no, this isn't working for me. Maybe I care more at that time.
Yeah, I think you're just on chill mode. Yeah, no, you were mean in relationships before. You were mean.
Like, my boundaries was like a brick wall. Like, you cross this, we're done. Like, no, you don't do that. Like I don't know. It was kind of too much back then.
A dude would do something wrong and I would be like, okay, so I'm gonna leave because she gonna go off on you and I'm gonna feel real uncomfortable.
And you're gonna see it all on my face.
So
anybody could get it back then, which I didn't understand that back then either. But maybe it is just because I don't really have like that much care. But what about you?
For me, I think this is kind of hard for me to explain because I just isolate a lot. Like when things get on my nerves, when I don't like something, I'm working on communicating now. And I try to be really careful not saying I'm good at communicating now because the truth of the matter is I'm low key still isolating. I really not doing
Not as much.
Not as much, but like I really am not dealing with people. Like besides at work, I really don't. I've been doing like a lot of stuff that I can do on my own. So it's hard for me to tell if I'm good at boundaries or not because I'm good at disappearing. Like I'll do a disappearing act on you in a minute. And I feel like when it becomes to people I really, really care for in the past, I feel like it takes me a minute, but I do come around to talking about it. Like I do low key, like I might disappear for a day and then I feel guilty and be like, you're an adult. You're in your 30s. You teach other people how to communicate and use communication skills. You should probably do that. And I come back around, but it's something that I think is kind of hard for me when it comes to, I think this is something that can be kind of hard for me when it comes to like really, really close connections because I think it's just out of not being used to having to do that. Like I'm not used to sticking around. I'm not used to being like, you hurt my feelings. So I feel like it's something that I'm getting better at. I don't think I ever really had an issue with people crossing my boundaries so much outside of family. And like you said, kind of when you're younger and you really didn't feel like you had a choice. Like I'm in my 30s. So I grew up in the 90s. I grew up in where you really didn't have a choice. Like your parents just told you what you was going to do. And like,
so you couldn't have boundaries for your parents.
Yeah. Yeah, like they did not care that you was 25 and not in their home. Like you was in their home for this 5 minutes. And so that's what you're going to do. So with family, it definitely was a struggle. And I think that was a big part of why, like, y'all, when I turned 18, I was like, bye. Like I literally picked my college on because I wanted to go to Spelman. I wanted to go to Spelman, NYU. Anyways, I had a brother that was going to school out in Cali. He was going to one of the not UCLA, but like UC San Francisco or whatever. And they were paying for his college too at the same time as mine. So my parents were like, yo, you go to school. Like, understand, like all we can pay for is tuition. Like you SOL. If you need rent money, anything else. And so they compromised with me. Like, if you stay in state though, we'll still cover rent and stuff for you. So I literally based mine off of what is the furthest thing away from y'all. Like, that's literally how I picked my college. I didn't step foot on campus. I ain't look up nothing about their programs. Like, that's how I ended up picking my school because of that wanting to get away from having that type of control over my life. Yeah. So for me, that was something that was kind of hard for me, but it's not an issue for me now. I'm quick to be like, you're crossing one of my boundaries. I throw that in my parents' face all the time now. And I actually use the word boundaries too, because, black parents of a certain age are real quick to call everything disrespect. So yeah, I'm real quick to use the word boundary in case they try to trap me with some, like, I know you ain't like, psychology said you wrong. Pastor Carter. Okay. So please respect my boundaries. But yeah, so I definitely think this is something, in a way I did definitely struggle with. And it's something I think I am learning to handle boundaries in a healthy way. That I think has been my struggle. Not so much boundaries, but handling boundaries in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does this look like in family situations when family members may be crossing boundaries? That can look like many things. Like maybe say you're just single and you want to be single and you just don't like all the questions. You just don't like all those things of when you're going to have a kid or when you're going to try again or when are you going to get married or when are you going to start dating again. You just don't want to do those things. And family members just making it hard for you and not letting you set that boundary for yourself. Or even parents like, no, you're going to do this. You're going to come and you need to be with the family. You need to let the family in. Sometimes we just want to be by ourselves and that's okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, being able to set those boundaries for yourself and not allowing your family to dictate those things for you. And with family come a lot. Like, why didn't you want to come? I just don't want to come. I just want to relax. I just want to be in my house. Even if it's something you just want to do to get your sanity. Yeah. And family not understanding that you have your own sanity to worry about. I love you guys, but if this is my choice to do this for me, you as a family should be okay.
Yeah. And that can be a simple boundary of like, you will not come over unannounced. Yeah. Like that's one of my, I need mental preparation before I talk to y'all. Please, so please give me time and ask permission before you come over my house. But even with family, like one of the things that came to mind is we did an episode where somebody had asked a question on questions nobody asked us like 2-3 episodes ago, where like the girl's mother was going through a divorce and wanted to talk about all the sordid details of like her divorce with her dad. And she was just like, I am highly uncomfortable. Like that can be a boundary. Like, do not put me in the middle of y'all's disputes. Mm-hmm. That can be a boundary of, if you have another issue with somebody else that I love, that I am close to, do not emotionally dump on me and put me in the middle of y'all disputes, because that puts me in a very awkward situation that makes me highly anxious and uncomfortable. And that can be one of those boundaries. I know with me, I know one of the boundaries I have, this is really one of my daughters. I'm big on, like, my daughter has rights. Yes, she's 5-year-old. No, she can't just do whatever she wants, but she has rights. And it's been hard for like older family members. It's like, when my daughter says she doesn't want to kiss right now, I'm not arguing with her. I'm not trying to guilt her into it. I'm not trying to pressure her into anything. And she's like, I don't want to kiss. Cool. She don't want to kiss. Let her go about her way. And it's been really hard. Yeah. And it's been really hard for like older family members to get that. And they're just like, well, why don't y'all blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm a social worker. I've worked in the field for a couple years now, almost a decade now. And I have worked with kids who like, they did that because they didn't feel safe around the people y'all was making them kiss. Mm-hmm. And then y'all was making them kiss people who were straight up predators to them.
Exactly.
And now they grew up with this mindset. Now they come 21, 18, 19. They tell you some stuff that happened when they were 6. And y'all like, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, because when I was sending out signals that I didn't feel comfortable, you still pressured me to be around this person. So it kept in my mind that, okay, I can't talk to y'all about this because y'all don't care about my personal safety. Like it can evolve in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. So even if it's someone like, it can be me at times where I'm like, baby, give me a kiss. And she's just like, no. I'm like, cool. No, because I want to teach her that she has rights and autonomy to her body and that she gets to dictate if she wants to be touched or not. And if she doesn't want to be touched, I respect that.
Or even like the playing where you're tickling, stop. If she says stop right then. Like, like, don't, like, you have to listen to these things. Like, if I'm not comfortable, let that be known, like, so nobody else won't violate her and she think it's okay. You know what I mean? It's as simple as a thing.
Yeah. But it's like, definitely, I feel like sometimes you could say stuff like that to family and everybody, girl, ain't nobody blah, blah, blah. And ain't nobody blah, blah, blah. And look, all I know is that I am a Black woman. I'm a Black woman in my 30s. And at any particular point in my life, if you took any 5 female friends that I had and asked them, had they had somebody violate them that was either a family member or a close family friend, usually 3 out of the 5 will say yes. So with that said, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Let's teach boundaries. Let's teach you have autonomy to your body. Let's teach I'm going to respect your decisions about your body. So when someone doesn't, it feels off to you and you know to tell mommy. Mm-hmm. And I bring that up because, again, that's one of those things that happens in our community. Like when you're like, oh, she don't want to kiss me. Come here, give me a kiss. That baby funny acting. No, let that baby have her space and her boundaries. If that baby says she don't want to kiss, don't let the baby just go on. That is not hurting you. You really arguing ego over something so small. Mm-hmm. That can mean a lot to her. So just let it go. Let it go. But then there's also like boundary issues when it comes to like friends. And when it comes to friends, what usually comes to mind to me, something I hear about all the time, is when friends expect you to be there when you are already at your wit's end. Mm-hmm. And not respecting the fact that, look, I am going through my own shit. I recently had a talk with somebody about this like a week ago where they were going through some things and they were stressed and they were just like, and then everybody comes and dumps on me. Everybody tells me their feelings. And I'm just so tired. And I'm like, okay, so why can't you tell them when they start that story? Why can't you stop them? Be like, hey, you know what? sweetie, I know you're going through something, but I don't have the mental capacity for this right now. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, I am also going through my own stuff and I can't handle any more information. I can't handle any more stress. I can't handle anyone else's burden right now, girl. And this is something I do all the time. I actually do this with my sister a lot because my sister, she's so smart. She's so beautiful. She's so intelligent. I love you so much, Jacita. You're so amazing. But this is something me and her do with each other. Like, she's really well informed. And so she'll send me articles. And sometimes she'll send me an article and it'll be about something horrendous happening to a Black person somewhere on the road and no one caring. And I'll just text her back like, hey, sis, sorry, I don't have the mental capacity to read this article right now. And she'd be like, no problem, sis. And then she'll like send me a meme instead.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, yeah. And I love that. And even though that's like my sister, I love that. But I use that also with friends. And I've been teaching other people to try to use that with friends as well. Because people think when you say that, oh, they're going to think I'm acting funny. They're going to blah, blah, blah. Girl, that's not your real friend. If you tell them I am mentally exhausted and I cannot handle anything else, and their response is you acting funny. That's not. Let's reevaluate if that's someone I even want to be around.
Yeah. That is true. I guess it's hard sometimes when friends say that stuff, but like you said, that lets you know if they're really your friend or not.
And a lot of times they won't even say that. It's us assuming that they're going to get mad, and so we don't, and then we just take on this new emotional burden that we really don't have the space for.
And it burns you out even more. Let's talk about relationships. It could be the same, but like even with how you said like a friend can come to you and dump on you, it can be the same with relationships sometimes, when your mate can just dump on you, but never leave room for you to have that, be that, for them to be there for you when you need those things, or just having boundaries to be like, or even boundaries to speak up and saying, I need this to be reciprocated, or I need you to be there for me as much as I'm there for you. That can be a certain thing that some couples can go through, or just setting boundaries for the relationship. Some people are like, I want to not get physical until I'm sure that this is a real thing, and your partner not overstepping that boundary, your partner respecting that and saying, okay, let's see if this works, and having agreements about that, like just not pushing you to your limits and just agreeing with your boundaries, or saying if they're okay with that, and if they're not. It's just like, yeah, those are some of the things that come to mind for me. Do you have anything that you want to say about them?
Oh, girl, all types of boundaries in relationships. One of the boundaries I have in my relationship is you don't make me responsible for your happiness.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure to put on a person. That's one of the things I'm really big on. One of my boundaries is I can't be in a relationship with people who try to keep denying my reality. That's a whole...
Or not recognizing your feelings, recognizing your feelings or your emotions. Like, you're not going to tell me that that's okay when I'm telling you this is hurting my feelings. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Yeah,
like there's all, like I have a lot of boundaries in relationship when it comes down to now. Like, no, what I call lazy communication. Which is like whenever we need to talk about things, you just kind of, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. I mean, maybe. And then they try to switch the subject. Nope, we having a full-fledged convo about it. Are you saying you're not ready for now? That's cool. But we have a set time where by this time we need to have this convo, and we need to figure out what it is. Like there's no skating around vulnerability. And I can pick up on it because I'm good at doing it myself. So don't try it on me. I know what that is. I do it as well. But like, I'm at a point now where it's like, no, we're being serious. Like, no lazy communication. I know a big thing for me right now is like, I don't want to be a boundary for me is feeling like I have to play your savior.
Yeah.
I don't want to save nobody. I don't want to say, and that's not to say, I want to be very clear, because sometimes people think savior and they're like, oh, okay, well, so I can't have a bad day. You can help me out. Or like, I can't make more money than them and I like use my money to help them out or whatever the situation. That's not what it is. I'm talking about when my complete role for you is to be a savior, no matter what it is. Like sometimes it's emotional, usually it's emotional savior, but sometimes it's different roles of like, that's literally all this is me constantly like being your therapist. I don't want to be your therapist. I am a whole ass therapist in real life. Pay me. Pay me. If I start to feel like I'm your therapist, I'm going to just give you my business card over dinner and be like, so this isn't working for me, but I have some good coping skills that I could teach you. I charge $120 an hour. You can call the office secretary. She'll let you know when my next availability is. But other than that, like that's not what this relationship is going to be.
The whole thing, the one-sided thing.
A one-sided thing. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. So definitely. And the same thing, like not accept a boundary can be simply as like, I'm not accepting less love than the love I give.
Yeah.
I'm not accepting less trust than the trust I give. I'm not accepting less care than the care I give. I'm not accepting less respect than the amount of respect I give. Yeah. So yes, definitely a thing in relationships, all of those. But so like, how do we even get to this point though, where we have these type of bonds with people and we realize like, okay, our bond is full of lots of boundary crossing. It's full of like, this is a consistent thing in this relationship with this person. Like, how does that even end up happening?
I really think, like I said earlier, like this going back to this childhood or the way you were raised, like we have to teach ourselves as we grow that boundaries are okay. It was just inherited in us. I don't know, like our families, like you don't have a say, and then for me, it's just like being taken on like so much of being the oldest. Like I didn't have a say. Like, okay, maybe I don't want to help out with my sisters, or maybe I don't want to do these things, but I never had that chance to say those things. So it was just like, okay, this is love, you know what I mean? Or this is, you'll get appreciation if you do this. So you're not setting boundaries at work because you maybe want to be appreciated, because you got appreciated as a child for doing these things. And for me, it's just like always goes back to childhood and what you were raised, how you were raised. And like you said, in the 80s and 90s, well, really 90s. I was born in 88. But in the 90s, it's just like, that's just how it was. And you had no say about it. We didn't have the word boundaries. Like we didn't have all those things. So it's just like now we're the generation like getting out of those things and setting those boundaries and teaching our family members like this is what that looks like and this is what that means. But before it's just like it was kind of ingrained in us. So I never knew to speak up until I got my first. Maybe until I got pregnant is when I started speaking up the most. So I'm like, I got a whole shout in me. I guess I don't know what came over me. But when I got pregnant, I'm not holding my tongue anymore. I'm going to say what I want to say to people. I started saying what I wanted to say at work. I started saying what I wanted to say to my parents. Like friends to something that, oh, you're mean. Because I never spoke up for myself. So no, I'm not mean. I'm just telling you how I feel and this is what it is. But I was just like, I just got to the point. It's like, I am so tired of doing everything that everybody else wants me to do. This is what it is. And I'm a mom. I guess, I don't know, some super mom power came over me. I'm like, no, that's just not going to roll anymore. And I started to speak up and set those boundaries and not doing things I don't want to do. But before, I just really feel like was how I raised, and then everybody gets used to that and just keeps going, and you have to break that cycle.
Yeah, I agree. I think this becomes a thing and we're like normalizing it in our lives when this was something we came from. It was taught to us that this is normal. Like when you love people, you let people crush your boundaries. Mm-hmm. And kind of like you talked about, that can be childhood, just not allowing to have boundaries as a kid, but also it could be the relationships you saw as a child or as a teen, or even your friends. It might be when you're older and you're like, well, I don't know. I'm single and lonely all the time. And my girlfriends stay with a man. I mean, the men's are always treating them wrong, but they stay with one. So maybe I'm the problem. So maybe I should just let him get away with more. Like that's a thing as well. But sometimes that can be like if We grew up and we saw mom always letting dad cross their boundaries. And they always gave in. If we saw mom always kind of just giving in to keep the peace, or we saw dad always just kind of letting mom go off, do whatever she needed to do, and him just being like, oh, okay. I mean, definitely told you, it was poker night and I ordered the pizzas and everybody's coming over and sent invites and everything and, whatever. But, she's mad and she said no. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. And, I guess I'll go back on my word to 20 of my closest friends. For like when you see that, and again, it doesn't always have to be mom and dad. It's just important relationships that you pay close attention to. Seeing that happen kind of like role models it for you, or like role plays it for you. And whether it's conscious or unconscious, sometimes that can seep through to us like, oh, that's how relationships work. And I want to bring that up because I think sometimes I was watching a documentary about Princess Diana, and in the documentary, they were like showing clips of people in the news and people on TV talk shows and stuff like that. They interviewed during the time that she was like married to whoever. I'm not into the British royal family, so I don't know the names of everybody besides Diana. Please don't come for me. But it was like during the time like their marriage was collapsing, and like it came out that he was cheating. Like a tape came out of him like talking to another woman very sexually and expressing his love for this other woman, all this. And like during it, it seemed like it was a talk show. And they were talking to different women, and the women were getting mad that like the host was saying like, okay, the marriage might be over, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, this is just marriage. Marriage is just about compromising, blah, 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 blah. And it stuck out to me because I'm like, so many of us think that compromising means that we are not allowed to have boundaries. They misplace the word compromise for crossing over your boundaries. And that's not what compromising should be. Compromising is supposed to be each of us get a little bit of something. And we come to a middle ground that we both agree works for us. When your boundaries are being crossed, it doesn't work for you, but you're doing it to keep the peace. And I want us to stop teaching people that that's what compromises or that's what relationships are. I feel like in older generations, it was definitely taught for women to have their boundaries crossed, and then it was called compromising, and that's not what it is. And fellas, I don't want to leave y'all out. I definitely know men in my real life that like that's a thing. That is a thing for them where they are like constantly having their boundaries crossed and diminished to the point like they don't have boundaries, and they're just like, yeah, but I do anything for love. And I'm like, yeah, but you should not do that. Like you should not.
Happy life thing or whatever. But then sometimes that happy life stuff, it like the wife goes over all their boundaries. I mean, it just has to be a common communication, and it's sacrifices here and there, but
yeah. And we have to start seeing boundaries as a form of self-love and a form of self-respect. Because I love myself, because I respect myself, these are my rules that I need to keep myself safe. And I will not let you cross these rules because I love myself, and because I respect myself, and because I want to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
When you keep allowing people to cross over your boundaries, you are diminishing your own self-worth. So unhealthy boundaries are boundaries that we put up, but it's out of fear and not out of a fear of like, oh, I have to keep myself safety. So let's talk about what our boundaries should be based off of. So kind of like we said, these should be rules and regulations you set up to keep yourself safe. So when we're talking about creating boundaries, you should know what your limits are, what you can and can't handle. And that is kind of what helps you figure out, okay, this is a boundary for me. I know one of the things I can't handle in like romantic relationships is feeling like I'm left out the loop, like I'm the last to know. Feeling like you making all these moves and all these plans that I do not know about until last minute. Yeah. For me, that triggers my fear of abandonment. That triggers a whole bunch of stuff. That triggers 2008 Ress. You don't want 2008 Ress. She will pop up out the past in the quickness. But for me now, I know that that's a thing for me. So I know that when it came to boundaries, I needed to put in boundaries around communication. can you think about, what about you, Nique? When you think about your limits, what was one of those limits that helped you figure out like, okay, now I need to make this a boundary?
I guess like it was like a huge limit. It's usually like relationships. Like I will let my family dictate my relationship. And then when I found like, you know what, I should have moved differently in that situation, or I should have took advantage of what I wanted to do, and that would it look like if I did certain things for my family, what it look like to them. And that's why after that, I'm like, okay, it's what I want to do. I'm just going to tell them. I never asked them, but you know, they always give the unsolicited advice to you. And they're your parents. That's just how they roll. Like, so it's just like, after that, it's just like, I'm just telling you what you got to do. And I would say, I hear you, but this is what I'm going to do. I don't say in the boundary words or anything, but I'll tell you, I hear you, but that's not what I want to do, or this is still what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Leave it at that, and we just look at each other, do that like little Puffy and that man stare, like, that's what I'm doing, like the stare off at each other, like there's nothing else to say. I'm going to walk away now. Like,
so for you, would your boundary be that you won't dictate my choices?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. And I think boundaries should also, like, when you're thinking about creating boundaries, it should be based on like things that allow me to keep my self-respect, things that allow me to keep my high self-esteem. And kind of going back to what you said, like when y'all make me question my decisions, like that's making me feel questionable about my ability to make choices, ability to make decisions, ability to do things
on my life. And it's only going to affect me. You know what I mean? Like, or my child now, but it's like these things are only gonna affect me. And then it just happened in one relationship. It was more than, it was a lot of them. So it's just like, yeah, I have to make those. Yeah, that matters.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to making boundary, that's one of the things you have to say to yourself. It's like, okay, now that I decided, like, no, I'm gonna have boundaries, I'm gonna stick to them. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable, because if you've been living without boundaries or letting people just constantly like walk all over your boundaries, it's gonna get uncomfortable, especially the first time you're like, what you not about to do? People are going to be taken aback. People are going to look at you crazy. You're going to have that Diddy meme moment where you have that stare off of like, what you mean?
That's the same thing that happened, you know, when I was pregnant. Like, friends that did, like, they were really taken aback. Like, you're mean now. No, I'm not mean. I'm just telling you this is how it's going to be, and this is still what I feel about it. And I want to be heard. I want to be heard. I never was heard. So, like you said, people are going to be really taken aback. But, like, at that moment, I was tired of being uncomfortable all the time, and no, it's time. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but I'm really just trying to tell you how I really feel, because you never really knew. I was being like a pacifier for you. So,
and I love that you said that, because that's a very, very real thing. I feel like with family, that was a thing for me, where it was just like, oh, well, now you just so moody. No, y'all just never knew the real me. And now you're getting to know the real me, because I wasn't allowed to be the real me. I toned down who I was because I felt I had to be, like you said, like the pacifier. I had to make everybody else seem neutral. And now I decided, nope, real me showing up. And real me got boundaries.
It's just like, welcome. Here, I'm here.
I'm here. I'm her. So let's talk about how we can set those boundaries. One, you set them with like actions, but you also have to say them with words. So some words or phrases you can use when someone is trying to trample all over your boundaries is words like, look, I am uncomfortable with blank, and what I need is blank. So this can look like, look, I am uncomfortable with, I'll go back to my like relationship one. I am uncomfortable with you making last minute plans without telling me. What I need from you is better communication. Yes, I get that you're your own person and you have your own plans. However, it makes me feel highly uneasy when we are in this serious committed relationship together. We're trying to do this serious long-term thing and you have big plans such as going away for 2 weeks and I don't know nothing about it. That makes me feel like I'm not a big part of your life. I'm not a big enough part of your life that you thought to include me in those plans, to include me, to make sure I even knew that it was happening. So from going forth, what I need you to do is simply let me know. I'm not saying check with me. I'm not saying that you need to, make sure you get my approval. I'm saying to let me know what you're doing because that makes me feel like you care about how I feel and you're not trying to hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. So I'm uncomfortable with, and this is what I need.
Yeah. Another word that could be said could be so simple, a simple sentence. I decide I do not want to do this. And that could be it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, could be your whole sentence too. No. Like that could be your whole sentence too. You don't have to explain yourself.
You look.
Yeah. And another one is, this is something I am not okay with. Mm-hmm. Too. Like, you can explain if you want to, but you don't really have to. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that.
I'm not. Look, quick example in the family. Girl, mama tripping, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to just come over with the kids. We just going to stay there like a week or two. I am not okay with that. Yeah, I'm not okay with that. Last time I won. That can be it. You don't have to go into any explanation. It's a full sentence. Like, no, I'm not okay with you doing that. You should call another cousin. Well, let me know how it turns out for you, sis.
Yeah. Yeah. I can give you a few nice places to stay. Ideas to stay, but not with me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. That, you know what? I'm surprised I didn't bring that up with family. That is actually a big one for me. People being in my space for long periods of time because I grew up, my mom and my parents were like the house that everybody came to. Like when something went wrong, you lost your job, you kid acting up, you whatever. I constantly had, people in my home all the time. And I think it's why I'm big on my home now, being like my own private space. Don't talk to me. I don't want to know my neighbors. I don't want to blah, blah, blah. Like it's a big thing for me now because I did not have that when I was younger. Like I would always come home and find out somebody new was about to live with us for a couple months. And it was so unsettling. And it was just so unsettling for me as a kid. And not to say that like, that's how it's going to be for everybody. But for me particularly, it was annoying and unsettling to always come home to someone new. And now I have to adjust around this new person. Now I got to share my bathroom with this new person with this, now I can't walk around in my PJs like I normally do because now there's 6 boys in the house. So now I always got to wear, cover up to my ankles and my wrist and my, sorry. Just that took me back like you know what? No, that is a big one for me. I do not like sharing my space. Can we get you a hotel room? Yeah. Can we get you an extended stay? I do not like to share my space. I really, really do not. Like I need to have a mansion with like a guest house, an acre away from the main house. And you can stay there. Maybe. That sounds evil. But I promise you, that was, did not know that was a trigger for me. Like, I'm like, seriously, like seriously pissed thinking about that. But okay, so we said the words, but like now let's talk about the action part of it. Like the action part of setting boundaries. This can look like setting a limit to how much time you're willing to give a situation, a person, or a thing. And this can be sticking to it. This can be situationships. How long is my limit? I am not about to be your friend for 5 years. We're not doing that, sir. Yeah. I want clear rule. I want a clear cut definition of what we are. Okay, sis, then give yourself a limit of how long you're going to let this flow. How long you going to let it figure out? And it can be something as simple as, you know, if you are like, okay, I'm marriage minded, I want to get married. Sir, I'm not about to be your girlfriend for 10 years.
Exactly.
Okay, sis, then how long? What is your limit? And I'm not big on ultimatums. That's not all what I'm telling y'all to do. But what I'm saying is I'm big on, like, if you know you don't want something, don't allow it to go on forever.
Yeah.
Decide how long you willing to put up with a situation. Don't give ultimatums, because they shouldn't have to even be put in that situation. Nope. You should know by this song what you trying to do. If you don't, that's cool. No ultimatum. I'm going to just end this for me, for my mental health, for my peace.
Like, not like, do this how I'm going to go. I'm just going to go. You made it clear.
Some other parts of that action can be just that being able to walk away afterwards, that follow through.
Yeah.
Because actions because doing that talking, if you ain't about to put the follow through, means nothing. And they're going to crash your boundary again.
And just trying to spare time or something, like, you know, just talking just to keep you a little longer, which is crossing boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Another action is just being in touch with what you are really feeling, like being honest with what you're feeling and follow those feelings and stand on that, you know, and don't, you know, put your feelings to the side.
And that in itself can be its own boundary. I will not stick in situations that make me feel unsure of what we are doing, that make me feel unsure of myself, that challenge my confidence, that whatever you're feeling, whatever that feeling is that you're like, I do not like that feeling. Okay. A big part of that is learning how to be in touch with your feelings.
Right.
I will say for me, this was a thing across the board, like friends, relationship, family, across the board. I feel like for a long time, I knew the feeling of anger and I knew the feeling of like happiness, but that was like it. And for a long time, I did not recognize, like, no, you're not mad. You're sad. You're not mad. You're not angry. You are freaking hurt. This is hurt, baby. Because I wouldn't allow myself to really feel hurt. So I would just automatically default to anger, to like, you know what? And I'm going to set this on fire and I'm blah, 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 da, da, da. No, when all that really was is I am hurt. And recognizing of like, okay, and I don't want to be in situations where I feel hurt on a consistent basis. And I'm now recognizing that, no, I'm not, this is not a passionate affair. This is a situation where I'm constantly angry, and I'm constantly angry because truthfully the matter is I'm not even really angry. It's you just make me feel hurt a lot. And I don't like that. That is not a part of what I want in whatever this relationship is, whether that be family, friends, or man.
Yeah.
Now, so why is it so important to have boundaries?
One of the reasons it's important is so that you can have the feeling of never living your life for yourself. You are living for others. And who wants to go through life like that? When I realized that I was doing that is when I realized, like, okay, I have to stand up and change this or set boundaries. Like, you don't going to go through your life living your life for everybody else and never get the chance to live your truth or be happy for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and we had an episode kind of on this called The Sacrificial Lamb. And it ties into that where, like, when you never feel like you live your life for you, you kind of create this identity for yourself where I am the sacrificial lamb. My job is to show up in people's lives and just constantly sacrifice for them. Forever taking care of other people. That is my job, to sacrifice. And it's a horrible feeling. For some people, they revel in it for a while, but after a while, you get tired of that. You get tired of like realizing there's nothing there for you. There's nobody there for you. And sometimes when we have that feeling, nobody's there for me. Okay, are they not there for me because I don't require them to be?
And they're like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Because that's a whole thing within itself.
Like, even like going back to dating, I realized that sometimes you can tell the person, like, these are my boundaries, and they can keep on crossing them. And then, like, your next boundary could just be like ghosting. I'm just saying, like, okay, if you talk to this person and then and then they keep crossing those boundaries, or trying to gaslight you, or trying to manipulate the situation, your boundary can be like, okay, we're cutting this off and we don't have to explain because this is what it is.
Y'all know how I feel about ghosting. I personally don't think it's a bad thing. My therapist disagrees, but
I like to explain. But if they don't have that emotional capacity to talk to you and understand your feelings, it's like you're not going to get it. So let's just cut it off. Let's just cut it off. I at least gave it a try first. Or just,
sometimes ghosting keeps you safe, because there are situations where, like, me being in communication with you is not safe for me.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't safe. So I'm like, it's just gonna have to go. It
is what it is.
And it was like, that felt good, because I tried. Like, and you keep manipulating my words, whatever, or my boundaries, but you don't really care about them. Or other situations where I have like explained, like, okay, there's no reason. I had said this too before. There's no reason for us to talk in this period of my life, because I don't need a friend, and you don't have the capacity to give me what I need. So I'm going to stop talking to you right now. And I explained it. That was another situation. They just said, okay. And I was like, I appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation. Your conversation was great too, but we're going to end this now.
Yeah. Another reason why it's important to keep boundaries is, like, when you don't have boundaries, it can lead to those unhealthy cycle of codependency in relationships. And that's what your thing was making me think of. Like, it can lead to that when you have someone who constantly just keeps not listening to your boundaries, gaslight you, just goes over it, and then you stay. You're like, oh, because they need me, and they only do this because nobody else is there for them. You're creating a cycle of codependency. And then after a while, it gets confusing on who really needs who.
Yeah.
Because which ties into that whole sacrificial lamb thing, where I need you because you allow me to keep sacrificing myself, and that's the role I decided to assign myself. And then you need me because you need someone who just lets you wild out and do whatever, and nobody else lets you wild out and do whatever, and they're still there. Like, it creates this very toxic, codependent relationship. And the amount of dysfunction, I feel like we had an episode on codependency. I can't remember. I think we did, but it breeds some of the most toxic type of relationships when you're codependent.
Yeah.
And a big thing for me is, especially if you plan on having kids or you are a parent, you want to be a parent one day, maybe you don't, and you just end up being one. Fucking around with the Supreme Court. It's always important to me to try to get these things into check now before you create these types of relationships and bonds, and then you pass that on to your kids. I honestly, like, most of the work I do is because of my daughter. Like, most of the inner work I do, like, I really would not care that much about being toxic if it wasn't for her. Because I don't want her to pick up on those traits and go do them. I feel bad when, like, I feel bad, like, again, if y'all put on some, like, Dipset, some Cameron, Purple Haze, like, the other day, Gucci, I Think I Love Her, came on, and I did Susie's whole part to a T. And then me and my daughter were at Walmart, and she went, Gucci Think I Love Them. And I was like, Gucci who? No, we going back to Coco Melon. Like, I guess I felt bad, because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying now to people, because, she's at the age where she should say all types of things. But seeing your child mimic a behavior that you know is wrong really does something to you. And so it's always like, yo, if you can get this now before your kids pick up on it, the better. Because even, like, as me, you were talking, a lot of times we're like, yeah, because I know my childhood, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is why this was a thing for me now, blah, 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 blah. Because it was what was shown to us. And they didn't know better. But, like, you're now getting that information. You're getting that information from podcasts. You're getting that information from books. You're getting that information from TV. You're getting that information from friends. You're getting that information everywhere. And now you have no excuse to continue your toxicity other than, I decide I still want to. And that's fine. You can decide that. But that's not fair to those who you want in your life that you decide to keep being toxic. especially children.
Another reason that it's important to set boundaries is that you can become mentally and physically exhausted. This looks like not being able to get out the bed, not having the capacity to do things that you need to be done for yourself, or even fun things don't seem fun anymore because you just have so much on your mind and not setting these boundaries and trying to live your life for other people. And it's just like you miss out on even self-care for yourself, and you're depleted on all levels because you're not setting those boundaries and doing what you need to do to live your happy and full life because you're so busy trying to sometimes just please other people. I guess that's what I sometimes feel it is, pleasing other people. And that's been my whole makeup, my whole life, is being a people pleaser. But it comes a time where it's like I am not happy at all because I'm trying to blow out all these fires that don't even have anything to do with me. So that can make you exhausted, both mentally and physically. So
yeah. And of course, there's a lot of reasons why boundaries are important. Those are just a few. But our biggest takeaway from today is that it's important to have boundaries. It's important to have that for yourself, but it's also important to have that for others and respecting others' boundaries. Our biggest takeaway is that we want you to know that having boundaries is not selfish. It's self-care, it's self-love, it's self-respect. And so we hope that after listening to this, that today you will sit and think about the boundaries that you have. And are you making sure you're keeping those? Are you making sure that that's something that you're making a priority in your relationships and you're making sure others respect that? Or are your boundaries something that you just technically have in words and that's it?
Yeah.
Because you might be sitting around like, why am I so tired and so unhappy and unfulfilled with my relationships, with my blah, blah, blah. And it could simply be a matter of because I don't have boundaries in them and I'm not taking care of me in them. It's always just me respecting others and taking care of others, and no one is doing that back for me. So with that said, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, we'll have a new episode for you guys next Thursday. Head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Leave us a review with some words. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at SheWolfAlchemy. And other than that, you'll hear the sound of our voice next Thursday. Bye.